One. Welcome everybody to the Local Agent. I am joined by Jess, Densley, a coach we've been using at Remax for a while now. I thought it'd be a prime opportunity to get you on and pick your brain. I think there'll be a lot of people out there who will be interested, who will learn a lot from the chat we have. I'm still learning, and there's always room for improvement. So I know we speak, and we're going to do a catch up after this, which I'm looking forward to as well, just to reflect on my own progress numbers. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Great to be here today, mate. Crossing beautiful WA in Perth.
Yeah,
the weather's nice, which is great.
Yeah, staying on the coast, which is good as well.
So, my background, Jordan, is I'm from the coast as well. Actually, I grew up in a place called Warrnambool down on the Great Ocean Road. That's where I grew up and got into real estate a bit later, around 27, 28. I got into real estate. So a bit later. Started as a
Was that here or was that over east?
in Warrnambool, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Started out in Warrnambool, and early days I was a tradesman, painter, and so I got into real estate quite late, and we'll talk a bit about it in this today, but real estate happened for me pretty quickly after that time, and just fell in love with the process. But I fundamentally come out of sporting. I coached a lot of football back in Warrnambool. I think that, look back on that, and it really helped me in that journey of, I guess, just that belief of coaching and getting the best out of people.
Yeah, definitely. And so what drew you to real estate? Was it just, did someone say, oh, you should give it a try? Or
Well, funny enough, tell a story that I actually previously to start in real estate, I'd been overseas for about 12 months on a holiday, and went on a stand at Kentucky tour first off, and then got to London, and then my plan was at the time to stay there for about 10 to 12 months, and about 2 weeks later, for some weird reason, I applied for a job in real estate and got a job as a real estate agent in London.
Oh, wow.
And then on reflection, a few days later, I thought, what am I doing? I'm here to let me head down, relax, and have a holiday. And so I decided not to go ahead with that actual job.
Yeah.
That probably gave me the spur. And then when I'd been away for 12 months, got back to Warrnambool, for me, that was probably the perfect timing because I'd been out of the trade for 12 months. And I thought, now's the opportunity to have a go at it, and not knowing really what it was like, to be honest. I had no idea. And I was just came in, and like most people, I say to most people, just had a phone and a desk and said, away you go and have a crack. And
So you didn't join a team or anything? It was more, hey, this is what it's about?
Yeah, funny enough, I actually initially got a job with LJ Hooker as an assistant and a cadet, and then I ended up joining Ray White. Changed my mind the last day before I was supposed to start there, and probably the reason for that was because they were going to give me an opportunity straight in sales, and I was 28. Felt like I knew a lot of people from sport, and had a bit of profile in that community, so that was how it started. But essentially, and I tell people this story all the time, Jordan, that at the time, that office, very little process, we had lots of turnover, and I just seen people coming and going from time to time, and I just felt like there was a better way. And so it probably took me a good 8 to 12 months to probably really see that there's something, got to be something better to build your career. And so I went outside of the office and just got my own training and invested in that myself, and then in year 2 became the number 1 agent in that office.
Wow.
And I reflected back on it, and then people in that office started to want to talk about what I was doing. And for me, it was just a process. I went away and got processes and plans on how to run a database and how to structure things. And fundamentally, it was just about following people up, really.
Yeah.
It was just about every person I come in touch with, I added up to some type of follow-up plan. So whether it was a buyer, whether it was a potential vendor or seller, I added them to an action plan, and in a space of 6 months, I'd turn up to the office on a Monday, and I think I would have had like 100, 150 tasks set for the week.
Wow.
And that was really where it started. I had that discipline to follow that from week to week and grew momentum really quickly, and then went from number 1 agent in that office, and then ended up becoming the number 1 regional agent in Victoria and Tasmania 12 months later.
Yeah. So when did you move over? So how long were you in real estate here before you moved over?
No, I started in Warrnambool.
So you started there?
Yes, yeah. So I started there, and done sales there for probably 7 to 8 years in total.
Yeah, okay.
Combination of sales, and then I became a business partner about 4 years into that journey. And then for me, I was pretty clear on where I wanted to go as a business leader and owner, and for me it was about building a team and not focusing on sales. And so I worked myself out of that position and worked on the business, and then we had substantial growth on that front as well in terms of bringing people in and recruiting them and training the right way. And so it was a really quick journey. Went from being the number 1 agent in the office to the regional agent award, and then we become the number 1 office right through regional Victoria as well.
Wow.
We won that award 3 or 4 years running, and then that's probably where the coaching journey started. That ambition, people started to reach out to me a lot and say, "What are you doing?" And early days, I felt like it was easy because it was just the tasks. But when we might touch on it later on, but I think one of the biggest missing pieces that I'd seen when I went into coaching was just that need for people to want to know what the implementation plan was. That went to whether it was a conference or an event, seeing it from a more high level perspective, but they wanted the implementation plan, and that was what I felt like I have that ability to teach someone that plan and what that looked like, and hence here we are today.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And so are you loving it? Are you enjoying the transition that you've made? And
yeah, I love it. And a lot of people ask me, I get asked sorts of weird questions, Jordan, about, why aren't you still selling? People say it to me a lot. If you're so good at it, why don't you selling still? And it's a funny question I get asked, and because I'm still involved to some extent in some different businesses. That is, for me, I just probably came back to my sporting background. I coached football, and remember early days I went from a football side. We won a premiership, and then I had this aspiration to go and coach another side who'd been on the bottom of the ladder for about 10 years running, had won 2 or 3 games in about 10 years, and it was when my dad played a lot of his football, and I decided to go and coach them, and we got within one kick of a grand final.
Wow.
In the space of 12 months. And for me, that was probably that first part of, maybe having that belief that I could try and get the best out of people. And, we had a side that was not a lot different. We recruited a few people in, and then really that was where the belief probably initiated from, to be honest.
Yeah.
Of feeling like, I've probably always been like to think that I can sit with someone individually and just know what makes them tick, and look at how I can get the best out of the individual. And I look at a typical real estate business today, there might be 10 members in a team, and I think they're all got to be coached in different ways. Yeah. Because they all operate and they learn differently and take information in differently. And so that's fundamentally what I really enjoy. I really enjoy, a few years ago, I had cancer back in 2021. Prior to that journey, I was running quite a big national online coaching program, which I enjoyed. But when I came back from my cancer journey, I decided to do more hands-on back in people's offices, and
for sure,
because I really enjoyed that aspect of doing what we do, like get together and I can get to know you more and get to know what makes you tick and look at your strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes it's a bit harder to do online. And then I can work with individual leaders and team members to try and get the best out of themselves.
Yeah, well done. That's obviously coming through the other side of cancer. That's no mean feat. So that's obviously it's nice to be through the other side of that. So well done.
Yeah, I've been telling, but I'm quite an open person on that front, and I was been telling people this bit of a story of late that I got diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer, middle of COVID. We were in lockdowns in Melbourne, and I told people the story around goal setting more specifically. I remember at the time that when I got that news, that knowing what I knew about process and structure, I went straight home and set out a goal and a plan of how I was going to beat it, and I put it up on the wall of my bedroom, which I knew where I was going to be for a few months, just getting treatment, come back and forward. And so I set the goal first, and then I thought, well, how can I give myself the best chance of reaching that goal that was going to be pretty challenging? And then for the next week, I went on this journey of I call it minimisation. Yeah. So I looked at all the things that I need to remove from my life that just weren't important. Yeah. Everything from emails and subscriptions and social media things. And I say to people now, like at that time, like for me, it was quite easy because I just wanted to focus on one thing. That was it.
You had a priority.
And I think of people when they set goals, they just allow too many distractions and things to get in the way, and they make excuses. And I had no choice at that time. Yeah. And I think back to, when I got through that journey and I ultimately beat that cancer, for me that was a big part of just managing my mindset and energy. I could focus in on that.
Have you always been a goal setter? Like when was the first time you can remember setting a goal for anything?
Goal setting's one thing, but for me I've always enjoyed the process part of it. Like if you set out a goal, and I think a lot of people make this mistake, that they'll spend too much time on the perfect plan to the goal. And for me, I think if you've got to set a goal, and I say to people out there, if it's a real estate goal, don't worry about putting weeks and months into the perfect plan. Set a goal, and then just get into it and start to take shots and start to get into the day-to-day process of it, and then you'll learn from your strengths and weaknesses and look at what you need to change and tweak. Yeah, I think a lot of people will set a goal and then they'll change. And I think I've been a believer that get into it, and this is one of the things that I felt like I was good at as a leader in my business, to give people the freedom to make mistakes, because I was like that myself.
Yeah.
And I'd get into it, I'd make a mistake, I'd stuff something up, but I'd learn from that and think, what can I learn from that to get better next time? And I think that ultimately, I think to people that, what is the learning and what can you lean into and have that freedom to make a mistake?
Do you think people often don't achieve their goals because ultimately you have to change in order to be someone different to achieve them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I look back at my journey of growth that I probably went through many changes.
Yeah.
Through that journey, I was.
And do you think that's why it was maybe a little bit easier, because you were embracing the change in order to achieve that goal?
Yeah, embrace the change. Learn to be quite comfortable outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people can struggle with, and I think for me that people talk about the why in your life. Like I think when my kids were born, probably that why really sort of kicked in. Probably coming from my background, I wanted to give my kids some opportunities that I didn't have when I was growing up. So for me, that inner drive was built from that, and that meant I had to do different things outside my comfort zone, and I learned to really enjoy that. Like for me, it was almost like what can I find next outside my comfort zone? I went through many weird things, Jordan. Like I remember getting up in the morning like 4 to 4:30, and I'd walk along the beach, and I'd have mindset podcasts in. I knew no one else would do that, so I'd just lean into that, and done that for about 12 to 18 months. Robin Sharma was the mindset guru at the time, and I just every day I'd listen to a different one. I went 3 years without having to drink alcohol. That was just something different outside of my comfort zone, and I knew I wanted to stretch myself. So a lot of weird things, but for me it was always, I used to do this little thing that I used to have a journal, and in that journal, at the back of it, I had all the things that were outside my comfort zone that I wanted to improve on. Yeah. And every Sunday night, I'd open it up, and I'd give myself a little rating out of 10 on where I felt like I was up to on that given week. Yeah. At the end of the year, I could put a line through that and cross things off, and the next year I had new things in. Yeah. So it became like building a habit. It was a weird way of doing it, but it worked.
Yeah, evidently, I think it's a good way to make sure you can stay on top of things and always strive to do something better as well, and even get you through hard times, which you've showed. Yes. In terms of setting goals, do you still set them on a regular basis? Have you stopped setting them now that you've achieved a few, or is there always something that you're striving towards?
Yeah, I do set goals, probably not as big as I used to, but I have just an exercise I do on a Monday. I've got an iPad, and I look at metrics around numbers in my business, and I'll break it into little quarterly project cycles, which I do teach people, a lot of people that, as you're aware. Yeah. So I'm looking at, okay, what are my projects in the next quarter that I want to work on, try and break them down into little mini chunks, and then I think what I need to do this week to get to that.
So do you implement a lot of what you teach to people yourself in terms of your week?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in that. So that quarterly project cycle is something I've done for many years, and just have the ability just to break it down into little chunks every week or week and two. I think sometimes people just think it gets a bit overwhelming. Yeah. So if you've got a goal and you're not where you want it to be, okay, what is the 2 to 3 things that you can take just to move it further down the road, one step this week?
Yeah, I suppose there's no wrong answer in terms of setting goals and to how big you want them to be, but do you think then there needs to be a realistic expectation of what you need to do to achieve them?
Well, I've viewed that differently over the years, and I'm a big believer on really getting to the point of really challenging yourself on what your standards are. Yeah. We can have a goal, and I think creating good high performance standards for me is a big one, and that might sound like a fluffy word, but I think I look at any great business or great individual, and they've got great high performance standards on themselves, and that could look like what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, how you exercise, what you eat, what you read. Yeah. I was always a really big believer in that, and over time they become just like repetitive in habits, like brushing your teeth every morning. Yeah. And I think I talk about that everything from in a typical real estate business is what are your team standards around prospecting. We've done a recent session on this, and for me, I look at what does it look like in preparation, planning, execution. All the things that I think add up to creating high performance long term. And I think a lot of people can get high performance maybe for a week or a month, but very few can do it consistently.
Do you think a lot of agents overlook mindset and how that has a correlation to their success?
I think they do. Yeah, mindset is definitely a big aspect of growth, and I think think about how you prepare your mind for when the ball bounces the other way. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people they won't sort of do much work on that, and then all of a sudden something will change in their business and their mindset's not ready for it.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I always say to people, prepare for when the ball bounces the other way. You know, so what's your mindset look like, you know, and what are you doing? And, you know, and I think for me that does come down to your habits every day.
Yeah.
You know, exercise and you know, energy management, you know, to be able to make sure you bounce back from those things.
How would you, or what advice would you give to an agent who needs to bounce back and who's had a couple of tough months or even just a few weeks that have strung together that they're trying to stop the snowball effect?
Well, I think energy management's a big one for me. I think when you're going through a bit of a flat spot, and we might have this conversation a couple of months ago, you know, and I think going through a flat spot, it's very easy just to fall off that, and all of a sudden a bad 2 weeks turns into a bad quarter.
Yeah.
You know, and I think managing your energy is a really important one of what that looks like, and sometimes people can have, whether it's personal challenges going on, you know, sometimes take over their work life, but really managing your energy and I best being honest with yourself around that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's hard to see. You know, sometimes if someone's got to point it out,
Yeah.
it is hard to see. But I think energy management is critical.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of new agents, do you think that they should be focusing on just working as long hours as they can, working as hard as they can, or do you think they still need to focus on that balance?
Well, I think early on, I would say to new agents that you've got to be prepared to put some quality time into it. I think people aren't honest with themselves around that, and that's why probably it's people tell me regularly in my travels around the country that talent's hard to find, and we have a program or system. We teach a lot of people on how to recruit and onboard people and find the right people who want to create it, not just a job.
Yeah.
But I'm very big on, if I'm interviewing someone for a job, I want to make it very clear to them that the early part of your career is going to be challenging, and you've got to be prepared to commit. Yeah. And I'm trying to tap into someone's, I guess, their own belief system of where they want to take their life. You know, do they want to build a great life for themselves? You know, if someone's really wanting that, you've got to be prepared to make some sacrifices, and you've got to be prepared to probably do things that maybe your friends and that aren't doing. Yeah. And I think that to me is, you know, I say this all the time to a young agent who's starting out, that the longer I can keep you away from a listing, the better your career will be. Yeah. And what I mean by that is getting out and building relationships, and I think that is still one of the biggest challenges this industry has. Yeah. I think that's my belief of why these third-party companies are existent in the country right now, because there's so many homeowners that just don't trust agents, so they'll go to a third-party company to help them choose an agent. Yeah. You know, so I think as a business owner and leader, when you're bringing team members in, I think it's the best thing you can give them. Get them out there and build relationships in the community before we actually give them a listing, because I think that's the biggest mistake that a leader makes. He'll give a listing to a young person thinking that's what he needs to do to get them out there and meet people, only to find out 6-12 months later that they haven't built the foundation of their business around relationships. Yeah. Then the leader becomes frustrated because they can't do that, and all of a sudden they're not performing and it's costing them money, and the rest goes from there.
Do you think a lot of new agents are a little bit delusional or lazy in terms of how much work that needs to be put in?
I think so. I think absolutely. I think but I think ultimately that I've always been a believer that if I look at go inside any business and I look at performance from agents, for me it's always a leadership issue more so. And I've told people this little story at times when I go into a business. I remember one I went into a few years ago, and I was working with the leaders and the team for a couple of months and trying to identify where their blockages are, and they had lots of turnover of staff coming in and out. And I said to the leaders, next time I come in, I want to have a catch up. I think I've worked out where the problem is. And of course, they were quite eager to find out what I was going to say.
I can imagine.
And so we sat down in their office, and I said to them, the problem's sitting in this room. And I said, it's used to as leaders, you know, because I think the way you bring people in and how what you do for them, what you give them, you're not teaching them the right habits. Yeah. And ultimately, what happens is they blame the people for underperformance, thinking they've hired the wrong people, and ultimately it's probably their issues at the end. And I think, that particular story is quite an interesting one, because they sacked me actually about a month later, but rehired me about 4 years later, because I think they realised I was right back in that conversation 4 years earlier, and their business hadn't changed. Yeah, jeez. So I still remember him telling that when I went back, and you know, we do get along quite well to this day. And I said to him, hey, you're obviously ready to listen now. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Well, in terms of new agents as well, and with starting off, what would be the most important thing that they should be focusing on in terms of, do you think door knocking and cold calling is dead now, or do you think that's still relevant?
Well, I think it's got some relevance. I do think that data, as we all know, is becoming harder to come by.
Yeah.
With the do not call registers and people having signs on the door, do not knock. But I think it has relevance with the right type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is if they're out there building relationships, not hunting for listings, and I'm a big believer in that, of getting people to understand the difference between nurturing as opposed to hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that mistake that a leader will put a young person on and say, go out and see if you can find some listings or appraisals.
Yeah.
That's hunting. I call that hunting. We should be teaching them to nurture relationships and get to know people.
Yeah, I think that's probably hard for new agents who want to be selling and they want to be, I mean, that's what they joined and wanted to become an agent for.
Exactly.
They wanted to sell property. So for them to be speaking to people and
Yeah.
to tell them delayed gratification, you're going to have to wait, a couple months
Yes.
before you start getting flow on effect through a pipeline and things like that. How would you go about telling them that it's going to be a little bit longer than you expect?
And again, if I talk about our training system we run with many businesses across the country, it's I call it an 18-month success program. It's like a mini apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So it's laid out to them up front before they start of what it will look like and the different phases they've got to go through of learning.
Yeah.
We give them lots of learning modules and we talk about understanding I don't even like the word prospecting, to be honest, but that's the first phase they've got to do. It's actually building relationships for a period of 90 days.
Yeah.
We want them to tick 3 metrics of building relationships, and then we take them into some next step is understanding buyer and vendor management.
Yeah.
And then the third part of is then learning listings and sitting in people's lounge rooms.
For sure. Do you find that in terms of building relationships, a lot of homeowners feel that they are easier to build relationships with agents who they trust, and it's hard to trust someone who's new in the industry or don't have a lot of knowledge of what's sold down the street or around the corner?
Yes, absolutely. And I think about this a couple of different ways. And I mentioned the third-party companies of how they're taking over the industry of basically going to real estate businesses with seller leads.
Yeah.
And we've already got the contact details in our computers, in our CRMs. Think about that. We're paying 20% for a name and number we've already got.
Yeah.
But we're just not nurturing well enough, and I think that's the challenge. And I think if we look at what our industry stands for, I think it's about trust. I think if you can build enough relationships to build trust, you become the agent of choice.
Yeah.
And I've a few different ways to get people to think about that. Do you want to be a generalist in your community, or do you want to be a specialist?
Yeah. I
think if you've got to build a foundation of relationship building and communicate that way, because I think what happens is this industry, I think, has got a massive issue around how we approach people, how we talk to people. We wonder why they don't trust us. Yeah. Because we're going to knock on someone's door, telling them we're going to buy for the home, or do they want to list for sale, and they say no. And then they go back in 2 or 3 months later or 6 months later and ask the same questions again. And they wonder why people slam the door in your face and have no trust. Yeah. Because they know you're just there for one thing. Yeah. Whereas I think if you've got that ability as a business to be able, and I have a saying like data share equals market share. Yeah. And data share is nurturing and building relationships. So when those people are ready, you become the specialist, and they more often than not will come back and choose your business. And my business, many years ago proved that. We grew data share up to 60 to 70%, and market share followed suit.
I think a lot of new agents don't realise that the other agents in the office who are more experienced already have that. And I think when they see other agents who don't do door knocking or cold calling because they've got such a large database and they get repeat business, I think that's also hard for a lot of agents to swallow, because they feel like, I'm putting in so much work, I'm working so much harder in terms of looking for new business and creating relationships, whereas agents who are have 10, 15 years experience, they're not doing that. And that can also be misleading to new agents, I think.
Absolutely.
Oh, why am I working so hard, 5-6 days a week and not getting anywhere near the results of these agents who have so much success?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's sort of saying I say to people that you shouldn't be asking them what they're doing now. You should be asking what they did to get there. In the early days, and that's the thing. I think as a young agent, I get asked this question a lot around what you've asked me a few times today. What should we be doing, and what's good advice for young agents? And I think you've got to be consistent. Yeah. There's no other recipe for it. Just turn up with good energy, good mindset. We talked about. Yeah. Be consistent at it. You think about some of the most successful people in the world, and I think with sport. Roger Federer is a perfect example.
Yeah.
His whole career, he only won 54% of his points.
Yeah.
But he's regarded as the best tennis player probably of all time. And maybe not the most Grand Slams, but
A few more percent than the other.
so I think you've just got to be prepared just to step up and turn up every day. And I say that to people a lot. That was what probably grew my success as a salesperson, as a leader. I never felt like I had great ability, but I had that ability to turn up every day and be consistent, make mistakes, learn from it, and ultimately just take more shots than other people.
Yeah, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Absolutely, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of working with clients, do you prefer working with individuals, teams, whole offices? Do you have a preference? Obviously, moving into the coaching space, do you love all of it? Or?
Well, I where I'm at today is I've done all different parts of it over the journey, but I generally like to work with leaders first and then down through to their teams, and so we get that real joint connection of buy-in of where we want to go, and I just think it makes it a lot easier. I've been and I've coached salespeople when the leader's on a totally different page. It makes it really challenging because you're trying to teach them one way, and then they get maybe getting coaching internally of someone else, and then all of a sudden they're getting really confused on where they want to go. And
for sure,
I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they won't continue the journey. Whether I'm, excuse my cough, Jordan. I think I've got
that's all right.
a Queensland cough I picked up a few months ago that I've taken back to Victoria here in Perth.
It's following you around. That's all right.
Of running around and just trying new things all the time.
Yeah.
If I think of someone who's been in the industry for many years who's not successful, and you would sit down and ask them, tell me all the things over the years you've tried, and they'd come up with a list a mile long.
Yeah.
Because they're just constantly looking for this next thing, but they just haven't got that ability to be consistent at the basics.
Do you think a lot of agents overcomplicate it and they're too busy trying to learn something new and do something different instead of just doing the basics properly?
Absolutely. And I think about that in a few different ways. I think as the world real estate landscape's changed over the last 10 years and technology's really become a big thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people are looking for technology to amplify their business, and they're looking for technology to make it easier and take shortcuts. And I think that's creating even a bit of a bigger issue, because people then they don't want to do the basics, because there's tech platforms out there now that will try and identify who's thinking of listing for sale, for example. So then they think, well, I don't have to prospect, I don't have to nurture people along because I've got something that's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen any of those people who are using those programs be $1 million agents, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
They might get a few leads out of it, but I don't think it helps you build momentum. And really take your business to another level.
Yeah, I think I don't know where, but I think even it may have been yourself even who said that you can't market your way into a suburb as a number one agent. You can't spend 50 to 100 grand just on marketing on social media, flyer drops to wait for the phone to ring. I think it is. Yeah, you'd be waiting a very long time to be getting all those.
Absolutely, yeah. I think about that here in Perth, and you ask this question a lot around what would you do differently, or what would you do if you started over again? So if I was to turn up here and you guys gave me a job to start here, what I'd do today, and what were the first things I'd do? And I'd say to the boss, don't give me a listing, let me any buyers, just let me spend 3 months and get out and build relationships.
For sure.
Knowing that if you have a good mindset and good energy and just build enough relationships, and if I had a core area I was going to work in, I'd be absolutely going over and above. I'd be learning what the coffee shops, and I'd be getting to know the local schools, and get invested in the community.
Yeah.
And then look at all the people that own properties, and then try and get out and just connect with people. I think the other thing is, I had this in my notes actually as well, is that when in that situation, I'm not going to have any listings, okay? So people say, where do you start and where do you get data? I'm just going to leverage off the lazy competitors, because I know lazy competitors, they won't prospect around their own listings and sales. I'm just going to use those as opportunities to get out and connect and build relationships that way.
I mean, I personally, if door knocking, like to have something with me. If, for example, you're an agent that doesn't have any listings, would you take something with you still when door knocking other agents' listings or other agents' sales? Or would you just door knock with nothing and just...
Yes, I generally would get our people we're teaching the 18-month sex programs to have one document, and be like a market review document, and have that as one they can show the client.
Yeah.
Then get their details to come back to the office and email them one out.
Yeah, for sure.
So then you've got something physical where you can show them, and I think that's just the best way to capture data.
Yeah.
Because as we mentioned earlier, it's becoming harder to get.
Yes.
So I think the business has got the most data in the next 5 to 10 years are going to win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so that's probably the first place most agents need to start. As you said, don't touch a listing for 3 months or so. Yes. Just focus on nurturing clients.
Yeah, I know that's easier said than done, because people out there watching this now might think, well, if I put a new person on, I've got to survive, and it's going to cost money, and there's investment I need to make in that. And I think one of the biggest learnings that I've had, and we built this into our program, is people that hire on gut feel. You hire on gut feel only to come back 3, 6 months, 12 months later. It's cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You've hired the wrong people, and your business never grows. What we try and get people to understand in our program rerun is that it can be a dollar productive exercise.
Yeah.
If you bring people in the right way with the right skills, and we have a process we take people through, which we call, it's a profile testing exercise. If we're recruiting, we take people through, let them jump through some hoops. They've first got to take what we call commitment test, which is an online prospecting course before they've even got a second interview. They've got to pay for that themselves, $100 cost. You think about that. If someone's serious about a career, they're probably going to do that. If they're not, they won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to get rid of the people up front, and they got to come back for interview, and then they go through profile testing. And profile testing for me is something I'm very passionate about, because what that does, it allows you really to get to know the individual.
Yeah.
And we have some benchmark reports that we give businesses, and we match the benchmark reports against the assessments of the candidates, and it gives us a percentage rating of how likely the candidate's going to be a high-performing agent. And I say to bid leaders all the time that my passion around that is that if I wouldn't hire people when they have a low percentage rating, and I give business leaders that advice all the time, knowing from experience that the traits that they display on that report will generally come out into their job, whether it's that they lack energy. When someone lacks energy or it's a low rating, that to me, probably 2 or 3 days out of every 5 days, they're going to need to be micromanaged.
Yeah.
So we're looking for to minimise all the risks that come up when we get people to hire, and then by the time you've hired them, they're going to be self-driven.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have good energy, probably likely have a good mindset.
Yeah.
So they're going to get out and they're going to understand what they need to do. So they're more than likely to come across potentially some leads that are going to help you pay for their employment in that first 3 months.
For sure.
But there's a process around that. But we've got so many amazing success stories around that, Jordan. We had one recently back down in Victoria where we had 3 people from one office came through this program we ran, and at the end of the 3 months, they generated $110,000 worth of revenue to that business.
Yeah, wow.
3 of them together. We identified 930 people that went into their database, so relationships they nurtured.
So the 3 people brought in 930 contacts. Wow.
That piece of data, and they had 93 people that identified looking to sell a home in the next 12 months. So they're the 3 metrics we look at, and it was an amazing case study because ultimately the people didn't have any choice.
Yeah.
So they weren't given a listing, they weren't allowed to do opens. They just had to focus on that one fundamental.
For sure.
And that's a result of people being true to the process, and that leader I've got a lot of respect for, who basically just stayed in his lane. He focused on what he was doing, he let us run the program, and the results took care of itself.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
In terms of agents that aren't quite ready to start a team, even just new agents, do you think a lot of them get caught up on what money they need to be putting into marketing? So, for example, if a new agent had some money to spend on marketing but didn't know where to go, do you think they should just forget about that for the first few months in terms of doing any flyer drops or doing any Facebook marketing, things like that? Because I feel like even, starting off as myself, being out as a solo agent is probably a space where I didn't know what to invest where.
Yes.
And just did a little bit everywhere.
Yes, yeah, I think you'd invest some money into potential letterbox drops, but I think ultimately, again, I'll come back to the relationship piece.
Yeah. Just
to focus in on that until you can build some momentum. And I think if you've got a good structure of your business, and I think I always say to people, people talk about, for me, marketing all the time, and I was always a believer, if you had a look at a typical vendor campaign, to try and incorporate some dollars to spend on marketing in that immediate area around the house.
Yeah.
So letterbox drops, some marketing on socials, and it's actually rolled out to that vendor that investment could potentially find them a buy in the immediate area.
Yeah.
So let's say there's $500 investment in that, and some agents will say to me, well, that's going to, I might not get enough listings because our marketing budget might be higher than my competition.
Yeah.
But then I'll say to people, why don't you think about that? Because that means to me, if you're worried about that, you probably haven't got a good nurture structure of your database.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a good nurture structure, when you get to that point, marketing becomes so much easier to sell. So it's the linkage between those two pieces, and I think coming back to your question, that and I haven't sold now, Jordan, for a fair few years, but when I was at that point, all my personal marketing, whether it was in print, whether it was letterbox drops, it was social, was all paid for by the vendor.
Yeah.
Because I rolled it into those campaigns and I sold it to them in a way where that's what we need to do to try and find someone in the local area.
Yeah. I mean, my next question was going to be, how do you combat that in terms of other agents in a tough market getting lower comms and they're asking for lower comms and you're coming up against that? But I suppose I think we have answered that question by having nurtured relationships when you're their agent before they need an agent.
Yeah, I think someone starting out, there's no question if you haven't got momentum, you might have to take on a few low comms to get started. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that if you get into a habit of having that as your whole career and you go in that cycle of that's what it becomes like, and I think that is, and again, like when they say commissions across the country have been lowering over the past 10 years, and I think that's a result, again, of vendors not having trust.
Yeah.
So they're ultimately going out and choosing agents based on fees and costs, or they're going to third-party companies. And I still think as we sit here today, that's the biggest risk our industry's got, because we've got all this technology coming into the market, people looking for shortcuts all the time.
Yeah.
And then you've got third-party companies who are feeding off all the vendors who don't trust agents.
Yeah.
And I don't think that gap's getting smaller. I think it's getting a bit wider from what I can see.
And what do you think the real estate market's going to look like over the next 5-10 years in terms of AI playing a role? And
and I think AI is one I probably don't understand enough about AI at this point. I've got a meeting with someone on Friday talking about some things that he thinks could change the industry. So
okay.
I'll tell you more next week.
Yeah, that'll be good.
But I think, like I talk about third-party companies, and I've still come back to probably several things I've discussed today about the power of the relationship. And it's probably I've been in this industry since 2006.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that has not changed.
Yeah.
The power of relationships. And again, there's been advancements on technology. Like there's a lot of things change in that space to make things easier, and AI is clearly going to do that, to another to a level again. But I just was talking about this with my partner the other day. She's quite passionate about AI, and I said I just don't think that it still takes away from the power of the relationship, that face-to-face interaction. That can't be taken away, because I think, and if you look at a typical real estate transaction, people still value that relationship part.
I think if anything, it's probably going to make the divide between good agents and bad agents even bigger. I think it's just going to enhance the good agents continue to do well with their processes. They'll probably just add a few things into it, and the bad agents are it's just giving them another answer or another reason for them to be lazy because they're trying to find a shortcut.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if we go to a next level again, we'll talk a bit about agents, but I think as a business and business owner, and I think this is what I'm seeing quite a bit now with especially bigger teams, is clearly like marketing and social marketing at a professional level has really gone to another level in this industry now, and I think businesses out there that I can see have gone a bit backwards. It's because they've got a marketing person who hasn't got the qualifications.
Yeah.
And I think if I try and give businesses that advice now, that I think if you want to be marketing to a cutting edge, you probably need to hire someone who's got those qualifications, who's got those experiences, that can know how to film proper video, can know how to get socials looking really professional.
Yeah.
And I can think of several businesses who I can see who have really catapulted their market share rapidly in the past 3 to 5 years, and every one of them would have a professional marketing person in their business.
Yeah.
And they take charge of agents' social media pages, the business social media pages. There's videos every day. There's interviews with team members doing like what we're doing today. It might be a work anniversary. It might be a birthday. It might be an event coming up. It might be an interview with someone in the community. But they're doing it to such a professional level where they're actually really their business is showcased to the community, not other than just listings and sales.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I learned many, many years ago when I was in my day-to-day running, that I just didn't want to be known as just a listing and selling business.
Yeah.
And we really got invested in the community back them days. But I think marketing is at a whole different level now than what it was 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think the money some, companies, teams, agents are throwing around just to try and make sure that they're seen and being heard is, definitely jumped as well.
Well, it's hard to do everything, isn't it? As you would know, as an agent, in terms of to be able to nurture your database, nurture your pipeline, list properties, sell properties, marketing. There's so many things now able to do. And I think there's you know, as you grow momentum, being able to sort of replicate that, maybe share costs through an office for the specialised top people you need.
Yeah, and I think it probably leads me to a more of a personal question, as I know that I'm probably not there yet by any means, but at what level do you think you should be at before you start looking at taking on another team member in terms of number of sales or a GCI number that you think is appropriate?
I think that does vary from market to market.
Yeah.
I think typically, you know, there's our old saying, would you get up to 30 transactions a year? You know, you might be generating enough income to get to that point. I'd say that's up to probably 50 or so now.
Yeah.
Transactions to be able to, I guess, to be able to fund that exercise. But I think ultimately people generally don't have that confidence to go down that path is because their business is very reactive.
Yeah.
I think we've got a reactive business model, and your model relies on just getting listing opportunities through open homes or just finding what I call free kicks, as opposed to nurturing. That you're probably not going to have the confidence because you're not really sure where your business is going to be in 3 or 6 months' time. You know, so that's a challenge, and you know, I still think I don't think this has changed a lot, but there's probably 10% of the agents in this country earning 90% of the money.
Yeah.
You know, and when you think about that, you know, I think there's people that they understand process, they understand building structure in their business, and once they understand that part, you know, they can grow so much. They compound their business. You know, they can bring junior people in. They can grow a database, and then they can bring a second person in, and they can take a different role in their team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that most people probably, as you said, just need to focus on nurturing relationships.
Yes.
That's probably the number one, and build that database.
Yes.
In terms of then also with quality over quantity, do you think with that applies also to social media? Do you think you'd rather have quality pieces of content, or do you think it's rather best to just start somewhere?
Well, I think as a single agent, you'd definitely be just getting into it. Like I was saying before, just start to do it. You know, and I think there is some good tools out there now, and you've mentioned one of the ones you're using to me today, and I've got a couple of different ones I use, but just to get out there and start doing it, and then refine that over time, where you can start to invest into someone who can maybe help you make your videos a bit better, or do videos. And you know, we talked about this in one of our recent sessions, that you think about all the people in your business right now that might be thinking of selling a home in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And I say to agents who are taking it to the next level, to do like a weekly or monthly video to all those prospective clients. And when I go into different training rooms, ask that question, there's very few people doing that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of the camera, and also it's a little bit foreign to a lot of people to film yourself and then send that to someone.
That's right.
Yeah,
it is, and it's like the fear of public speaking, isn't it? It's one of the biggest fears in the world. But I think getting in front of and getting comfortable just shooting a 30, 60-second video once a week and sending that to potential sellers, and how many people come through your opens, how many sales did your office make this week, or your market. It doesn't have to be related to you. Just give them some information on what's happening in the area and the market, so they can see you as a person. They're going to see you at some point.
Yeah.
So you might as well be on video and create a point of difference in your marketplace.
For sure. Look, in terms of probably wrapping up with a final question, more personal note, I know that you've been tracking my progress or slow progress in terms of the last 7 months. What's probably the next thing that I should be focusing on in terms of making sure I can get more listings or stay consistent?
Well, I think again, I think it's still understanding the compounding part of your database. You know, that's just got to keep that growth. I think I've said that several times in today's interview, but that's going to be a journey and a time that's going to slowly build up. And I think we've said this in a few of our catch-ups, that in someone who's tracking numbers consistently, and you can see those patterns start to evolve in their business and grow. And I think that ultimately is a big one. And I think that the other part is, we've talked a bit about this today around energy and mindset, you know, and most of the people out there would have heard this saying as well, is just look at yourself and look at how you're looking to grow, and then look at maybe the 5 people closest to you, and you know, are they the right people you're putting yourself around? And you know, and I always think that, you know, we talk about mindset. You know, for me years ago, I didn't know what that looked like, and so I went online and I started reading books, and you know, Robin Sharma was someone I really enjoyed, so I read his books and I found his podcast, and for that, for me, was like someone in my inner world, and it was like someone in my team almost.
Yeah.
So I think of people all the time. If you look at your goals, and if you're not where you want to be right now, you know, and sometimes this can be a challenging question for some people to think about, is look at the 5 people that you're spending the most time with, and and ask yourself the question: do you need to make some changes with that? Because I think that was something, the journey that I went down many years ago, and when I wanted to grow, and I still remember that when I say to people that felt like I was a very average real estate agent, but I wanted to go pro and go better, and I made that decision to start to put myself around different people.
Yeah,
and that didn't always mean different people in my community, but it meant mindset, and it meant coaches and getting myself around different agents. And I still remember, Jordan, there was a guy that I had a lot of respect for. He was up in Queensland, and he was regarded at that time as one of the best auction agents in the country. And so I thought, well, if I want to grow and get better, I've got to go and see him. Yeah. So I paid for my own ticket, and I flew up and just had breakfast with him. Yeah. Just picked his brain for a couple of hours, and you know, that for me is an example of, you know, how committed someone needs to be for their journey. And I think that's a big one for me. Like, really look at who's surrounded you and what you're doing and what you're reading and all the things you're doing. I think there's a big opportunity in that for growth.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jess, I'm very grateful that you came on and had the chat. So thank you very much, and I look forward to catching up personally and seeing what I can do to improve.
Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.